I think, all kidding aside, that this is another example of the Democrats are essentially a bunch of wimps. They don't have the guts. They don't have the courage of their own convictions. They're disgusting. I'm embarrassed. I want really nothing to do with them. And if they don't find their spine, well, they're in for a huge surprise.
The purpose of the Afghanistan war is to protect Unical's interest in the Trans-Afghanistan pipeline. The cost of the war is many times greater than Unical's investment in the pipeline. The obvious solution is to buy out Unical and give the pipeline to the Afghans as partial compensation for the destruction we have inflicted on that country and its population, and bring the troops home. The reason this sensible solution cannot be effected is that the lobbies think that their entitlements would not survive if they were made obvious. They think that if the American people knew that the wars were being fought to enrich the armaments and oil industries, the people would put a halt to the wars. Well, now, that would never happen, would it? In actual fact, the American people have no say about what their government does. Polls of the public show that half or more of the American people do not support the wars in Iraq or Afghanistan and do not support President Obama's escalation of the war in Afghanistan. Yet, the occupations and wars continue. According to General McChrystal, the additional 40,000 troops are enough to stalemate the war, that is, to keep it going forever. The ideal situation for the armaments lobby. The people want health care, but the government does not listen or care. The people want jobs, but Wall Street wants higher-priced stocks and forces American firms to offshore the jobs to countries where labor is cheaper. The American people have no effect on anything. They can affect nothing. They have become irrelevant, like Obama. And they will remain irrelevant as long as the organized interest groups can purchase the U.S. government. The inability of the American democracy to produce any results that the voters want is a demonstrated fact. The total unresponsiveness of government to the people is conservatism's contribution to American democracy. Some years ago, there was an effort to put government back into the hands of the people by constraining the ability of organized interest groups to pour enormous amounts of money into political campaigns and thus obligate the elected official to those whose money elected him. Conservatives said that any restraints would be a violation of the First Amendment's guarantee of free speech. Bullshit. Bullshit. The same protectors of free speech had no objection to the Israel lobby's passage of the hate speech bill, which has criminalized criticisms of Israel's genocidal treatment of the Palestinians and continued theft of their land. In less than 1 year, President Obama has betrayed all of his supporters and broken all of his promises. He is the total captive of the oligarchy of the ruling interest groups. Unless he is saved by an orchestrated September 11 type event, Obama is a one-term president, or less. Indeed, the collapsing economy will doom him regardless of a terrorist event. The Republicans are grooming Sarah Palin. Our first female president, following our first black president, will complete the transition to an American police state by arresting critics and protesters of Washington's immoral foreign and domestic policies, and she will complete the destruction of America's reputation abroad. Russia's Vladimir Putin has already compared the U.S. to Nazi Germany, and the Chinese premier has likened the U.S. to an irresponsible profligate debtor. Increasingly, the rest of the world sees the U.S. as the sole source of all its problems. Germany has lost the chief of its armed forces and its defense minister because the U.S. convinced or pressured by hook or crook the German government to violate its constitution and to send troops to fight for Unical's interest in Afghanistan. The Germans had pretended that their troops were not really fighting, but were engaged in a peacekeeping operation. Yeah, ain't that what we're all doing? This more or less worked until the Germans called in an airstrike that murdered 100 women and children lined up for a fuel allotment. The British are investigating their leading criminal, former Prime Minister Tony Blair, and his deception of his own cabinet in order to do George Bush's bidding and provide some cover for Bush's illegal invasion of Iraq. The British investigators have been denied the ability to bring criminal charges, but the issue of war based entirely on orchestrated deception and lies is getting a hearing. It will reverberate throughout the world, and the world will note that there is no corresponding investigation in the U.S., the country that originated the false war. Meanwhile, the U.S. investment banks, which have wrecked the financial stability of many governments, including that of the U.S., continue to control, as they have done since the Clinton administration, U.S. economic and financial policy. The world has suffered terribly from the Wall Street gangsters and now looks upon America with a critical eye. World polls show that the U.S. and its puppet master are regarded as the two greatest threats to peace. Washington and Israel outrank on the most dangerous list the crazy regime in North Korea, for God's sake. The world is beginning to see America as a country that needs to go away. When the dollar is overinflated by a Washington unable to pay its bills, will the world be motivated by greed and try to save us in order to save its investments? Or will it say, thank God, good riddance? I'm betting on the latter. Oh, am I betting on the latter? Yes, sirree, daddy-o. A fart bag. I think I have a honk list here. Yes, I do have a honk list here. Oh my God. Stand by for the honks. Ye who appreciate. Honk request 1051, BJJ Bear 73. I'd like a honk request for all the morons who voted for Obama and months later found themselves unemployed in the worst economy since the Great Depression. Yeah, honk request 1052, Gabriel's voice. Can I get a honk for being blonde and still smarter than all the sheeple? Honk request 1053, chain of 3. How about a honk for someone else's problems, maybe a couple of them? Honk request 1054, Shadow Adler. Honk request for Britain, the unwilling subject state of the EU. Honk request 1055, Ty Lorian. Can I get a honk request for all of us legal citizens who are still without a job? Honk request 1056, say no to slavery now. Give yourself a honk for continuing to inform your viewers, even though it seems futile. Yes, it does. It probably is. Yeah, bye-bye. So long. See you now. Watch your head. Be all you can be. Be a bushwhacker. Be aware.